In her chair, Agnetha Fältskog reclines. She still looks stunning at 75. Before, a face that sold a lot of records and broke many hearts was framed by that golden hair. But there's no sly smile or shyness tonight. Right now, she wants to be really honest. The reporter poses the question that has been on everyone's mind for decades, with a half-blush, half-smile expression. Agnetha was one of the most sought-after women in the world during the peak of ABBA's fame. How about you? What were the guys that most tempted you? Her eyes sparkle as if she's been waiting years to respond, and she gives a cruel smile. Oh, sweetheart, do you want the list? I'm this old, why lie? I've performed songs about broken hearts, dance, and love. However, there were moments when I was contemplating something far more sinister. There were 7 of them, and the voice of one man made me want more than a pair. She lowers her voice to a deep purr and leans in close. Honey, they weren't crushes. These were merely fantasies, dreams of sex, perspiration, and heat. I wanted to pull off the glitter, forget the dancing steps, and never leave the dressing room because of some of the males there. I was good most of the time. However, you would continue to write about all the issues if I let you leave. She giggles uncontrollably and tilts her head back. I had ideas behind closed doors that would have sent the media into overdrive. I was ABBA's blonde angel on stage. Why not be truthful tonight too? I was tempted to sin by 7 leather-clad men. They were devils, singers, and icons. Who knows it at 75 doesn't matter to me. Enjoy the film and don't forget to subscribe. For more fascinating vintage Hollywood news before we begin the list. As they do for many fans, numbers 5 and 7 on Agnetha's list will truly surprise you. She expresses her true feelings to them. It's really startling. Let's begin immediately. Benny Andersson is at the top. Agnetha's eyes light up with the excitement of expressing something no one else will, and she laughs so hard it's nearly evil. Benny. Yes, Benny. He was always regarded as the guy behind the piano and the creative force behind ABBA. But let me tell you something. People never realized how frightening Benny was. With those fingers and that cunning smile, he had a boyish appearance. God, look at those hands. You would watch him play for hours on end, wondering what else those hands might accomplish. She bites her lip and her voice becomes quieter. Hey, Benny and I never spent time together. It's not formally recognized. However, that did not imply that there were not instances. On some evenings, they played for hours on end, making it difficult to distinguish music from other sounds. Sometimes he would be looking directly at me while he played the piano. He wasn't just going over notes, I'm sure. He was making a joke. Every chord and melody seemed to be a ruse. The thought of what might happen if I allowed him to continue made my heart race. Her tone had changed to one of bravado, almost sex. We would all have a drink in the evenings following performances, and Benny would lean in close. His hair would go crazy under the lights, and he had a perfume and sweaty smell. He would tell a joke that made me laugh, but the pause would be a bit too lengthy. I reasoned that we're not going to make it back to our hotel rooms if I didn't get moving immediately. He would put his hand on my knee or arm. As though confessing a sin, Agnetha shakes her head and smiles. Benny was older, but he was strong and hungry, and you could see it if you looked closely. Let me say it. I imagined that we were alone ourselves, with the piano lid closed and nobody else in sight. He removed his hands off the keys and placed them on me. And I'm sure that the noise coming from that room would have been much worse if we had ever gone there. As though she had just revealed the worst secret imaginable, she sighs and falls back. It was simple to succumb to temptation with Benny. Worst of all, he was aware of it. If I had ever let myself fall, even just once, I don't think either of us would have been okay. Gib, Andy. With a loud laugh, Agnetha shakes her head, seemingly ready to confess her guilt. Andy Gibb. What a gorgeous boy he is. The Bee Gees' younger brother has a silky voice and a beautiful face. He was more than that. He was too attractive to be comfortable. Before he even began to sing, his wild, youthful eyes had the power to melt your heart. Her smile becomes cruel as she pauses. Andy liked me now. There was no secret. He wore it on his sleeve, so to speak. I'll admit it. He stared at me, as if I were the only lady in the room while we were near. I was chilled by it. He had a certain edge about him, as if he wanted to prove that he was more than just a boy pursuing a goal. But he loved her like a puppy dog. His goal was to be the man who could handle me. Her voice becomes seductive and frightening as it drops. I thought I knew more because I was older and wiser. My God, if I let go, this boy would ruin me, and I'd love every minute of it. I thought each time he leaned in and spoke in that gentle voice and smile. He sang them with such conviction that I used to imagine what it would be like if he sang me a love song in bed. As though recalling something, Agnetha reclines and slightly shuts her eyes. One night, after a show, we ended up at the same hotel bar. He was sitting quite close to me, saying kind things to me that nearly made me flush. He had a youthful, cologne-like scent. He gave you the impression that he had already undressed you a dozen times in his head. I allowed him to stare, and I might have even slightly leaned in to give him the impression that it wasn't impossible. Her voice becomes hoarse as she bites her lip. Andy was a tempting combination of music and youth. If I had ever let him to cross that boundary, it would have been awful. I wouldn't have had a chance with the sheets. 3. Rod Stewart, Wes. There's a gleam of mischief in Agnetha's eyes as she grins. Wes Rod Stewart. It wasn't only flirting that dude did. His lifestyle was flirtatious. He wore pants with a leopard design that matched his passion. Extremely noisy, very close, and difficult to ignore. As though he could already see you curled up in his sheets, he crossed the room. He had a gravelly, gruff voice. Rod never performed in front of large crowds. He hunted with them. You were glad he wasn't asking when his gaze landed on you. He had courage. As though revealing a dark secret, she leans forward and humps her voice. Lord, I was also in danger. I saw him at a lot of late-night events, award shows, and parties. He was always wearing that arrogant smile that suggested, you know, I'd wreck you, and you'd thank me for it. And just maybe, he wasn't wrong. Her laugh now has a nostalgic undertone and is throaty. I'll never forget that one night. I blushed like a kid when he sat me down after a show, holding a glass of champagne, and murmured something dirty in my ear. I'm Agnetha from ABBA, as you may know. In front of tens of thousands of people I have performed. And there I stood, hoping no one noticed my appearance while biting my lip. After giving the words some thought, she shrugs and smiles cruelly. Rod in his panties looked awful. If I had allowed him to drag me off the dance floor and into the dark, I doubt that either of us would have slept until dawn. The walls may have been harmed by the noise. The fourth one is Anne Fried Lingstad. She's smiling wickedly, as if she knows she's going to cause havoc. Frida. It was Frida indeed. She was the other half of our harmony, my stage partner, and the woman I occasionally feared could destroy me simply by being near. Her voice dips and thickens. She would lean into me for one of those duets while the music blared and the lights were on full blast. The way her hair touched mine, how hot she was, and the scent of her perfume. Oh my God, I completely forgot my cue after that. Sometimes I thought I wouldn't sing that night when she gave me that look. This is my confession. She shakes her head and chuckles slowly. When people saw the spark between us, they thought it was just magic on stage. However, I'll admit that it wasn't always acting, not even close. Frida seemed to be pushing me to do something I knew I shouldn't do. She exuded a sense of vitality and fire. Every time we exchanged glances, I wanted to. Her smile was an embarrassment. Those satin costumes might not have made it through the night. If we had ever been left alone after a show, who knows what we would have done. 5. Tom Jones. as if she hadn't forgotten. Agnetha's eyes twinkle as she reclines. Hi, Tom Jones. That guy could sing you out of your clothing in an instant, my God. It was more than simply sound in that voice. It was a directive. It is simultaneously smooth, rough, and vicious. You could see that he wasn't referring about dancing when he sang "It's Not Unusual." There was something else he was discussing, and you wanted it to be completely natural. Her chuckle is a deep, filthy sound. That thing, that heat, Tom had it. Women would melt into pools at his feet as soon as he entered a room. Nor was I composed of stone. At one gathering, he walked right by me, leaned in and said something. His hand remained on the small of my back while his breath touched my neck. I couldn't even identify it for you. Oh my God, I almost dropped my champagne. Her smile turns frightful. Tom had the energy of an animal and knew how to use it. If he had ever cornered me and hummed one of those tunes in my ear, I couldn't have resisted him. Elvis Presley was there. King Elvis. Agnetha exhales as though even stating his name carried weight. He was not only a vocalist. When he was wearing jewels and leather, he was tempted. Although I never had the opportunity to sing with him, I had more dreams about it than I can remember. There was something about him. When Elvis entered the room, all the other men exited. He surveyed the area. He didn't merely move. Even if he didn't touch you, those looks could strip you naked. She makes a gentle, inappropriate laugh. I thought about it in my dreams. The audience was still shouting outside when we were backstage together. His voice was low as he leaned close. Elvis had the ability to make a lady feel as though she was the only one alive, regardless of the number of people present. I wouldn't have cared who witnessed my footsteps around Graceland if he had ever pointed the finger at me. When her voice becomes seductive, it sounds like she's confessing. And those hips, don't even talk about them. Seeing him perform on stage was like witnessing sin. Rather of viewing them, I used to imagine what it would be like to be trapped beneath them. She shakes her head and chuckles. I had more than a crush on Elvis. He was living a perilous dream. If I'd stayed with him alone for one night, I wouldn't have been able to walk normally the following morning. David Bowie came in 7th. Agnetha's eyes seemed to be thinking something inappropriate for a little period. Bowie, David, that man didn't enter a room by chance. As though he were from another planet, he seems to float into it. He may have done so. The eyes and cheekbones were piercing, and the voice was low, seductive, and frightening. Because he was more than just attractive, I couldn't avoid him. She gives a cunning smile. The first time I met him, it was like I was under a spell. You felt as though he understood everything about you, and loved you more as a result of the way he looked at you. This guy could get me to do anything, and I'd thank him afterward, I recall thinking myself. Her voice falters in embarrassment as she leans closer. That was how Bowie was known. Too much of everything, beautiful ladies and men, and wild evenings. But he carried it so effortlessly, as if it were instinctive. A minute, perhaps. I wouldn't have been able to endure much longer if he had come in close and murmured one of those lines in my ear. In velvet and sparkle, the man had a captivating presence. She shakes her head and chuckles. You dream about some singers because they're safe. Bowie was frightening, so he was a dream. Something inside of me wanted to know how dangerous it was.